I've always been a straight shooter. When I discovered my firefighter boyfriend's phone, filled with flirty messages to some girl I'd never heard of, I walked right up to Nathan and handed him his phone, demanding an explanation. After a long silence, he confessed he the girl with depression that I rescued on a call. I'll admit I had feelings for her. But Summer, we've been together since high school. That's not easy to throw away. I promise I'll keep my distance from her from now on. Looking at the sincerity in Nathan's eyes, I swallowed my heartbreak and chose to forgive him. The wedding would go on as planned. But on our wedding day, his teammate suddenly burst into the venue. "Captain Evening found out about your wedding. She's threatening to jump off a building." The suspended diamond ring dropped to the floor with a sharp clink. Nathan bolted toward the door like lightning. I screamed after him, my eyes red. "Nathan, if you walk out that door today, we're done forever." He hesitated for just a moment, then left without looking back. He broke his promise after all. The wedding venue erupted into chaos. Best whispers pierced my eardrums like thousands of tiny needles. Both sets of parents rushed over, confused about what had just happened. Nathan's teammate, Josh, stood there helplessly, his face bright red. Summer Evening has clinical depression. Last time she tried to jump, the captain saved her. She's completely dependent on him. Only he can talk her down. It's a matter of life and death. The captain had no choice. Please don't blame him. Josh had worked with Nathan for 3 years. He always been respectful to me, calling me by name with a warm smile. But now he couldn't even meet my eyes. I didn't know how many of Nathan's secrets he'd kept, or what his connection was to this evening girl. Pain spread through my chest like cracks and ice. For the first time, I truly felt Nathan's betrayal. My parents held my hands, panicking. What's going on? Isn't he on wedding leave? Who needs him to rescue them right now? Nathan's parents called him frantically, apologizing profusely. "Summer, honey, don't worry. I'm calling that boy right now. If he doesn't come back, I'll break his legs myself." The diamond ring lay on the red carpet, kicked further away by passing feet. Just like my shattered heart, I stood there in my wedding gown, the train dragging on the floor like a cloud beaten down by rain. All those countless fantasies about my wedding day. I never imagined it could be this humiliating. The groom abandoning his bride in a hall full of wedding guests. For another woman. 5 hours. 108 calls. Nathan didn't answer a single one. I watched my phone screen go dark, light up, go dark again, until finally the battery died completely. Sunlight streamed through the church's stained glass, casting fractured colors on the floor. Falling across my empty ring finger, guests gradually left, leaving behind scattered confetti and half-eaten reception food. I suddenly felt dizzy. Everything spun. The last thing I heard was my mother's panicked crying. When I opened my eyes again, the smell of disinfectant filled my nostrils. A nurse was changing my foredrip. Seeing me awake, she said gently, "You're carrying a life now. Can't let yourself get this upset. You need to take care of yourself." I stared at the ceiling as tears silently rolled down into my hair. From age 17, accepting Nathan's love letter on the high school field to college, when he took a 20-hour train ride just to surprise me for the weekend, to the day he became a firefighter, his eyes red as he promised, "I'll protect the people, and I'll always protect you." 7 years flashed through my mind like a movie on fast forward. I smiled bitterly looking at my parents and Nathan's parents, their faces unable to hide their excitement about the pregnancy. Tears welled up in my eyes. How could I explain that? This 7-year relationship finally reached its end? At 7 that evening, Nathan finally appeared after vanishing for 6 hours. His face was pale, his eyes filled with guilt. "Summer, I'm sorry." His voice was hoarse. "Evening, I couldn't let her die. Saving lives is what I do." I swallowed the bitterness in my throat. "There are dozens of firefighters. It'd have to be you. She chose our wedding day to jump. She demanded you specifically come save her. What do you think that means, Nathan?" "I'm not an idiot." After a long silence, he gripped my cold hands, his voice rough. "Summer, in 7 years, I've never asked you for anything. Just this once. Please don't make a big deal out of this. Give Evening a hard time. I'm worried about her condition. She can't handle that kind of stress." I looked at the earnestness in his eyes. My heart felt like it was being crushed in someone's fist so tight. I couldn't breathe. He shouldn't be asking me for favors. He should be apologizing. A person's first instinct doesn't lie. He hadn't thought about how humiliated I must have been at that wedding. He hadn't worried about why I ended up in the hospital. All he could think about was Evening. Ears fell like broken pearls, landing on the white sheets and spreading into dark, vet circles. It took all my strength to squeeze out one word. "Fine." He visibly relaxed, then said, "Evening's really unstable. Knowing about our wedding, Let's postpone it for now. I'll help her get treatment for a while. Once she's a bit better, maybe 3 months. Just 3 months. Then we'll have the wedding. Okay? Nathan's voice carried careful, tentative hope. I'd waited 7 years. 3 more months shouldn't matter. But looking at the concern for another woman in his eyes, I suddenly realized I couldn't afford to wait even 3 months. The baby in my belly seemed to sense my emotions and moved slightly. I touched my abdomen where 6-week-old life was growing, ours, yet somehow no longer having anything to do with him. I slowly pulled my hand back, my voice flat as a dead lake. Nathan, I'm not good at remembering things, but I remember when you gave me that love letter at 17. You were so nervous you walked with both legs on the same side. I remember the first time you held my hand. Your palm was so sweaty, but you wouldn't let go for 3 whole blocks. I remember graduation day. You hugged me and said you'd take care of me forever. You said you'd make me the happiest bride all these years. You remembered I don't eat onions or ginger. You remembered to make me ginger tea during my period. You remembered every little habit of mine. I always thought you cherished me more than anything. I looked up at him, tears suddenly breaking free. But today I don't feel your love anymore. 7 years of memories crashed over me. Nathan's eyes reddened too. His throat bobbed as a tear rolled down. But summer evening needs me right now. One sentence, needs me, shattered my last shred of hope. I looked at him and suddenly laughed through my tears. Go to her. He seemed stunned, as if he hadn't expected me to say that. But in the end, he said nothing. He turned and left the hospital room. The next day, I packed my things to check out. Just as I turned the corridor corner, I ran into Nathan. His eyes weren't on me at all. Every ounce of his attention was on the girl beside him. She wore a hospital gown, her face pale, half carried by him like a frightened deer. So this was the woman he'd abandoned me at the altar. For my gaze must have been too intense. Evening noticed me first, instinctively shrinking behind Nathan, her fingers clutching his sleeve tightly. Only then did Nathan turn to look at me, his brow furrowed immediately, his tone impatient. Summer evenings emotionally fragile. Whatever you want to say, let's talk at home. Don't make a scene at the hospital and scare her. Evening timidly poked her head out, her voice barely a whisper. Summer, Nathan and I really aren't. Please don't misunderstand. I squeezed the ultrasound report in my hand until my knuckles turned white, but forced a thin smile. You're overthinking it. I'm just here to check out. I turned toward the billing office without another glance at them. Nathan's expression flickered with something strange, as if surprised by my calm. His heart felt oddly hollow. He reached out to stop me. I instinctively looked back and noticed a stain on my trench coat I hadn't seen before. His eyes followed my movement, seeing me take off the coat. He removed his jacket to put over my shoulders, stepped away. He froze, then followed me, trying to take the coat from my hands. Let me have it. You love this coat. I'll get it dry cleaned. I shook my head and tossed the coat directly into a nearby trash can. My voice flat. Throw it out. I don't like things with stains. You know, I'm particular about that. Looking at my cold expression, Nathan's smile stiffened. He knew I wasn't just talking about the coat. I was talking about our relationship. Before he could respond, I'd finished checking out and walked away. Not far from the hospital, my phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. Don't be mad. I got you those Napoleon pastries you mentioned wanting. Remember to pick them up when the delivery arrived at home. I stared at the familiar pink box and suddenly laughed. Whenever he made me angry before, he'd always buy pastries from the shop to apologize. Mechanically took a bite. It used to taste so sweet. Now it was just bitter and hard to swallow. That night Nathan didn't come home. Extracting herself from a 7-year relationship hurt more than I'd imagined. I couldn't sleep until dawn, so I got up and started packing. The matching hoodies in the closet side by side, photo frames on the bookshelf, the sticky notes on the fridge. Every item carried a memory that cut like a knife. I remember the year we graduated. Nathan had just become a firefighter working around the clock. But on his days off, he'd come find me, his eyes bright as stars. Summer, once I save up enough for a down payment, I'm marrying you. 3 years later, he stood before me with a property deed and a diamond ring, his voice trembling. I did it. I got us a home. I kept my word. The sunlight was especially beautiful that day. I held him and cried for a long time, feeling like the luckiest person in the world. We painted the walls together, assembled furniture together, filled the balcony with sunflowers. My favorite. He said he wanted sunlight to always fill our home. But now this home couldn't hold me anymore. As I sealed the last storage box, the sky began to lighten. When the movers arrived to take everything away, both sets of parents showed up at the door. I hadn't told them about Nathan, so they still didn't understand why a couple about to get married was suddenly breaking up. My parents sighed, but didn't push, just saying, "Come home whenever you want." Nathan's mother grabbed my hand and wouldn't let go. Summer, please give Nathan one more chance. What happened at the wedding? He just made a mistake. I said nothing. Just had the movers continue loading boxes. Just as Nathan's mother was about to wear out, her lips begging, the door opened. Nathan came back, and he brought evening with him. She wore Nathan's jacket, suddenly clutching his arm like a cat who just found its owner. The room went deathly quiet. Everyone's eyes locked on them. Nathan's mother's voice trembled. Nathan, did you betray Summer? Nathan's father shook with rage. Who is this woman? Nathan didn't answer. He just scanned the empty living room, his gaze landing on me. You're moving out? His voice thick with disbelief, as if he were the one being wronged. The sheer audacity of the question hung in the air, heavy and absurd. Before I could even part my lips to speak, Nathan's father crossed the room in 3 massive strides. Crack. The sound of the slap echoed through the hollow living room, sharp as a gunshot. Nathan's head snapped to the side. A stark red handprint bloomed instantly across his cheek. Mr. Evans. Evening shrieked, her fragile demeanor shattering as she instinctively threw herself in front of Nathan, shielding him like a martyr. She looked at my parents, then at his, tears welling in her large, hollow eyes. Please don't hit him. It's all my fault. I was in a dark place. If it weren't for Nathan, I'd be dead. Punish me, please, but don't blame him. She was shaking, her pale hands clutching the lapels of Nathan's oversized jacket. It was a perfect performance of vulnerability. A performance designed to make anyone who opposed her look like a monster. Nathan immediately wrapped his arms around her trembling shoulders, his eyes flashing with protective anger as he looked at his own father. Dad, have you lost your mind? She's a patient. She just got out of the hospital. And Summer was in the hospital yesterday. His mother screamed, her voice cracking as tears streamed down her face. She pointed a trembling finger at Evening. You abandoned your bride at the altar, humiliated her, humiliated us in front of 200 people for a patient? And you bring her to the home you built with Summer? She couldn't be alone, Nathan argued, his voice rising, desperate to justify the unjustifiable. Her landlord evicted her while she was in the ward. She had nowhere to go. I just brought her here temporarily, so she could rest while I helped her pack her things. Summer. He looked over Evening's head, directly into my eyes, his expression pleading. Summer, I told you I just need 3 months. We're going to postpone the wedding, not cancel it. Why are you packing? Why are you destroying everything over a temporary crisis? I looked at the man I had loved for 7 years. Really looked at him. I searched for the 17-year-old boy who had walked with stiff, nervous legs across the high school track. I searched for the man who had bought this house with calloused hands and a trembling, joyous smile. He was gone. The man standing before me was a stranger, entirely consumed by his own savior complex, intoxicated by the desperate, absolute dependency of the fragile bird in his arms. I'm not destroying anything, Nathan, I said, my voice so calm it surprised even me. It sounded like a dead lake, no ripples, no wind. You burned it down. I'm just sweeping up the ashes. Summer, please. He took a step forward, but Evening let out a soft, sharp gasp, gripping his shirt tighter, pretending her knees were giving out. He instinctively halted, supporting her weight. That micro-movement, choosing to stabilize her rather than walk toward me, was all the closure I needed. My mother stepped forward, stepping between me and Nathan like a shield. Don't you dare speak to my daughter, she spat, her usually gentle face contorted with disgust. You don't deserve her. And you certainly don't deserve the child she's carrying. The room froze. It was as if all the oxygen had been vacuumed out of the space. Nathan's body went completely rigid. His eyes darted from my mother's furious face down to my flat stomach, and then up to my eyes. The color drained from his face, leaving him paler than the girl clinging to him. Child? Nathan whispered, the words stumbling out of his mouth. Summer, you're? I was going to tell you, on our wedding night, I said quietly, zipping up my purse. A little surprise. But you were too busy saving someone else to care why your bride ended up on an 4-drip. Summer. Nathan's voice broke. He gently but firmly peeled Evening's hands off his shirt and took a step toward me. The hero facade was cracking, replaced by raw, unadulterated panic. Summer, a baby? We're having a baby? Why didn't you tell me in the hospital? Why? Don't come near me, I warned, stepping back. The movers had finished loading the last box. The house was empty now. Only the echoes remained. I didn't tell you, because it doesn't concern you anymore. Doesn't concern me? I'm the father, he yelled, his composure finally shattering. You are the father, I corrected him, stepping out the front door. Now, you're just the man who left us on the red carpet. Have a good life, Nathan. Take good care of your patient, because she is all you have left. I didn't look back. Even as Nathan shoved past his parents, even as he chased me down the driveway, screaming my name, begging me to stop the moving truck. My father physically blocked him, shoving him hard in the chest. "Stay away from my daughter," my dad growled, his fists clenched. "If you ever come near her again, I'll show you what a real emergency looks like." I got into my parents' car. As we drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. Nathan was standing in the middle of the street, his hands clutching his head, his face a mask of absolute devastation. Evening was hobbling down the driveway toward him, reaching out to him. For the first time in 7 years, I didn't care if he was hurting. I rolled up the window, leaned my head against the cool glass, and let the exhaustion take over. The first month without Nathan felt like withdrawing from a drug. When you love someone for 7 years, they become woven into the very fabric of your daily existence. I would wake up in my childhood bedroom, groggy and disoriented, expecting to feel the solid warmth of his back. I would reach for my phone to text him that it was raining, only to remember, with a sickening jolt, that I had blocked his number. He didn't make it easy. He came to my parents' house every single day for 2 weeks. He stood in the rain. He brought my favorite Napoleon pastries, letting the pink boxes pile up and soggy on the porch. He begged my parents to let him see me. When they refused, he wrote letters, long, frantic letters smeared with tears, apologizing, swearing that he had kicked Evening out, that he had found her a professional care facility, that he realized he had been blind and foolish. "I'm a firefighter," Summer, one letter read. "My whole life is conditioned to run toward the screaming." I heard her screaming, and I lost my mind. I forgot that my own home was on fire. "Please give me a chance to put it out. Give me a chance to be a father." I burned the letters. It wasn't that I didn't feel the pain. There were nights when the phantom ache in my chest was so severe, I had to bite down on a towel to muffle my sobbing. I mourned the boy who had held my sweaty hand for 3 blocks. I mourned the young man who had promised me the world. But that man was dead. The man standing on my porch was a ghost, trying to haunt a life I was actively trying to rebuild. By the 2nd month, the severe morning sickness hit, grounding me in the reality of my pregnancy. I threw myself into my work as a freelance graphic designer, finding solace in the absolute control I had over lines, colors, and pixels. My baby became my anchor. Every ultrasound, every little flutter of a heartbeat, hardened my resolve. I was building a fortress, and Nathan was not on the guest list. Eventually, the daily visits stopped. Josh, Nathan's teammate, managed to catch me at a coffee shop near my parents' house one afternoon. He looked exhausted, the bags under his eyes dark and heavy. "I know you don't want to see me, Summer," Josh said, awkwardly holding his cap. I wanted to apologize. For the wedding. For covering for him. We all thought we were doing the right thing, protecting a vulnerable girl. We didn't realize she was." He trailed off, searching for the word. "A parasite?" I offered mildly, taking a sip of my decaf tea. Josh winced but nodded. "He's a mess, Summer. He's off active duty. Got suspended because his head wasn't in the game during a 3-alarm fire. Almost got himself and a rookie killed." My hand trembled slightly, a traitorous spike of adrenaline hitting my system. But I forced my face to remain impassive. "That's unfortunate. But it's the captain's problem, Josh. Not mine." Josh sighed heavily. He tried to cut ties with Evening, put her in an apartment downtown, paid for her therapy. But every time he tries to walk away, she threatens to swallow pills. She stands on balconies. She calls his chief, crying that Nathan abandoned her. She's suffocating him. He realizes now what he gave up. He's drowning, Summer. "He's a firefighter," I said coldly, looking Josh dead in the eye. "He should know how to save himself." I stood up, leaving my half-finished tea on the table, and walked out. I didn't look back to see Josh's reaction. I couldn't afford to care. Empathy for Nathan was a luxury my unborn child, and I could no longer afford. Months bled into one another. Autumn turned into a bitter winter, and then thawed into a hopeful spring. By my 7th month of pregnancy, I was visibly carrying. The lawyers had finally managed to force the sale of the house. Nathan had refused to sign the papers for 6 months, clinging to the property as if holding onto the bricks and mortar would somehow resurrect our relationship. But my lawyer threatened to take it to court, and finally, his resistance broke. We had to meet at a notary's office to sign the final closing documents. I wore a tailored beige trench coat over a fitted maternity dress, my hair styled, my makeup flawless. I wanted to look exactly as I felt, put together, impenetrable, and moving forward. When I walked into the sterile, fluorescent-lit office, Nathan was already there. The breath hitched in my throat for a fraction of a second. I barely recognized him. The broad-shouldered, glowing man I had known was gone. He had lost at least 20 pounds. His clothes hung loosely on his frame. His jaw was covered in unkempt stubble, and his eyes, once bright and full of easy confidence, were sunken, shadowed by dark circles of chronic exhaustion. He looked like a man who hadn't slept a full night in half a year. When he heard the door click, he looked up. His eyes locked onto my face, and then slowly drifted down to the unmistakable swell of my belly. A choked, broken sound escaped his throat. He stood up so fast his chair tipped over backward, crashing onto the carpet. "Summer," he breathed, his voice cracking. He took a step toward me, his hand instinctively reaching out toward my stomach. I stepped back smoothly, maintaining a polite, icy distance. "Nathan, let's make this quick. I have a doctor's appointment in an hour." He froze, his hand dropping awkwardly to his side. He stared at me, his eyes brimming with a desperate, agonizing sorrow. You look beautiful. How is the baby?" "She's perfectly healthy," I said, emphasizing the gender. Let him know what he was missing. A daughter. A tear slipped down Nathan's cheek, losing itself in his rough beard. "A girl. We always said we wanted a girl." "I am having a girl," I corrected him gently. I sat down at the opposite end of the mahogany table, pulling the stack of documents toward me. I clicked my pen. "Where do I sign?" The notary, a quiet older woman who clearly sensed the radioactive tension in the room, pointed to the dotted lines. I signed my name with steady, unbroken strokes. Summer Davis. I had dropped his ring in the trash months ago. I was certainly not using his name. Nathan didn't look at the papers. He just kept staring at me, as if trying to memorize the slope of my face, the curve of my body. "Summer, please," he whispered, sliding the papers away when it was his turn to sign. I left her. I swear to God, I walked away. It was a nightmare. She was a nightmare. I was so arrogant, so stupid. I thought I was a hero, but I was just a pawn. I let her play me, and I lost the only real, true thing I ever had. I go to therapy now. I'm trying to get my badge back. I'll do anything. I'll sleep on your porch. I'll give you every cent I make. Just let me be a father to her. Let me earn you back. Even if it takes 10 years. His plea was raw. It wasn't manipulative like evenings. It was the genuine, agonizing remorse of a man who had woken up from a fever dream to find he had burned his own house down. A part of me, a very small, deeply buried part of the 17-year-old girl who had loved him, ached. But it was a phantom pain, an echo of a ghost. I looked at him, my expression softening just a fraction, not out of love, but out of pity. "Nathan," I said quietly, "do you remember the day you proposed?" He nodded frantically, hope flaring in his dead eyes. "Yes, the park. Under the oak tree. I remember everything." "You promised me safety," I said. "You said you'd protect me. But the moment someone else manufactured a crisis, you dropped me. You let me shatter on the floor in front of everyone I knew, because her loud, toxic demands felt more important than my quiet, steady love." "I was wrong," he sobbed, burying his face in his hands. "I was so wrong." "I know you were," I said. "And I forgive you." His head snapped up, his eyes widening in shock. "I forgive you," I repeated, the words tasting surprisingly true. Holding onto the anger was poisoning me, and I can't afford that now. "I forgive you for being flawed, for having a complex, for making a terrible choice. But forgiveness doesn't mean restoration, Nathan. Some things, once broken, can't be glued back together. You showed me your instinct when it truly mattered. Your instinct was to leave me behind." I slid the papers back toward him, tapping the signature line with my pen. "Sign the papers, Nathan. Let me go. That's the only way you can protect me now." He stared at my finger, then at my eyes. He searched them for a glimmer of hesitation, a crack in the ice. But I was no longer ice. I was stone. With a shaking hand, he picked up the pen. He hovered over the paper for a long, agonizing minute. Then, a ragged sob tore from his chest, and he signed his name. The house was sold. The tie was severed. I stood up, buttoned my coat, and walked toward the door. "Summer," he called out one last time, his voice the broken rasp. I paused, but didn't turn around. Will you tell her about me? Someday?" I rested my hand lightly on the doorknob. "I'll tell her that her father was a brave firefighter," I said softly. "A man who saved many people. But he just couldn't save us." I opened the door and walked out into the crisp spring air, leaving Nathan alone in the room, sobbing into the silence. 2 years later, the park was bathed in the warm, golden light of late afternoon. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the great oak trees, sending dappled shadows dancing across the grass. "Mama, look." Bug. I looked down from my sketchpad. A tiny, fierce little girl in denim overalls was pointing a chubby finger at a very confused ladybug crawling up a blade of grass. Her dark curls bounced around her cheeks, and her bright, observant eyes that looked so much like mine, were wide with wonder. "It's a ladybug, Maya," I smiled, crouching down beside her. "She's wearing a red coat with polka dots." Maya giggled, a sound like silver bells, and reached out to gently let the bug crawl onto her finger. Life had settled into a beautiful, steady rhythm. My freelance design business had taken off, allowing me to work from home and watch Maya grow. We had a cozy apartment filled with sunlight, potted sunflowers, and the scent of baking. I had dated a little, nothing serious, just dipping my toes back into the water. But my heart was full. I wasn't broken. I wasn't a tragic, abandoned bride. I was a mother, a professional, a woman who had walked through the fire and forged herself into steel. As I watched Maya marvel at the bug, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from Josh. Josh and I had maintained a very distant, polite acquaintance. He occasionally checked in, a lingering guilt driving him to make sure Maya and I were okay. I rarely asked about Nathan, but sometimes Josh volunteered information. "Just thought you should know," the text read. "Nathan got his promotion today. He's officially captain. He poured everything into work. He's good, but he's quiet. Doesn't date. Doesn't socialize much. He carries a picture of a little girl he printed from your mom's social media. I told him to throw it away, but he won't. Anyway, hope you and Maya are well." I stared at the screen for a moment. I felt a fleeting pang of sadness, not for myself, but for the tragedy of his wasted potential, for the self-imposed prison he had built. Evening had eventually moved on, as parasites do when they drain a host dry. Once Nathan stopped responding to her hysterics, she found a new target, leaving Nathan completely hollowed out, staring at the wreckage of the life he had thrown away for a mirage. He had gotten his badge back, saved his career, but lost the only things that made the career worth having to come home to. I locked my phone and slipped it back into my bag. "Mama, fly away," Maya gasped, watching the ladybug open its wings and take off into the blue sky. "She went home," I said, scooping my daughter up into my arms and burying my face in her sweet, baby shampoo-scented neck. She squealed and hugged my neck tightly. "We go home too?" Maya asked, rubbing her tired eyes. "Yes, my brave girl," I smiled, grabbing our picnic blanket. "We go home too." As we walked down the paved path out of the park, I didn't look back. There were no ghosts haunting my steps anymore. Only the golden sunlight stretching out ahead of us, illuminating a path that belonged entirely, beautifully, to me.